The Buffalo Bills might be circling back to a name this fanbase knows well, one that stepped into Orchard Park more than once and delivered when it mattered. The question floating around the league right now, is Shaq Lawson gearing up for yet another return to Buffalo? Here's what set off the alarms this weekend. Lawson, a former first-round pick who carved out some of his best football in Western New York, posted on Instagram from right inside the 716. No random vacation. No casual visit. He was here. And whenever a familiar defender shows up in town, especially during a season where the Bills have battled injuries across the defensive front, it's impossible not to wonder if something is brewing behind the scenes. There's been no official word from the team, no contract news, no roster update. But a player doesn't just slip back into Buffalo without eyebrows going up. This could have been a workout. It could have been a meeting. It could have been nothing. But history tells us the Bills don't mind reconnecting with trusted veterans when the timing feels right. Before we dive deeper into what Lawson could bring if this reunion actually happens. Before we go any further, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and don't forget to ring the bell icon so you never miss the latest Bills updates. Now, let's jump back into the news. Lawson's story in Buffalo stretches across 6 seasons. Drafted in 2016, he developed into a reliable rotational piece, never the star of the defense, but always the kind of player who made life easier for the stars around him. His production steadily grew early in his career, 2 sacks as a rookie, for in 2017, for again in 2018, and then his breakout in 2019 with 6.5. When the Bills brought him back again in 2022, it wasn't to headline the defense. He was there to fill critical snaps, set the edge, and keep the pass rush from losing steam. He delivered 3.5 sacks that year and added another the following season. He's bounced around since, briefly landing with Carolina and showing up for workouts with teams like Seattle and Indianapolis. But the Bills are the place where he's always fit best, schematically, culturally, and in the eyes of the fanbase. Now he's back in Buffalo. And in a season where the defense is begging for depth, experience, and energy, the timing makes this visit impossible to ignore. Shaq Lawson's career never matched the expectations that come with being a first-round pick, and nobody in Buffalo is pretending otherwise. But if the Bills are considering bringing him back now, it's not about chasing past potential, it's about survival. This defensive front has been hammered by injuries, and the team desperately needs someone who can step in without a learning curve. Lawson is one of the few free agents who can walk into the building and already understand the playbook, the coaches, and the standard. This season has been a grind for the edge rotation. A.J. Epineza has battled a concussion. Joey Bosa has been fighting through significant hand issues. Javon Solomon, while valuable on special teams, hasn't yet developed into a dependable rotational pass rusher on defense. And behind them? It's been a revolving door of unavailable bodies. Injuries on the interior have only added to the pressure. Players like T.J. Sanders, Daquan Jones, and Ed Oliver have dealt with significant setbacks, while Michael Hoy and Landon Jackson have seen their seasons essentially wiped out. Week after week, the Bills' defensive line has been forced to patch together combinations that were never part of the original blueprint. Depth isn't a luxury anymore, it's a crisis. That's why Lawson's name keeps resurfacing. He's not expected to be a star. He's not being viewed as a season-saving force. He's simply someone the Bills know they can plug into the rotation immediately without reteaching the scheme or adjusting their style of play. But whether that's the smartest strategy is a fair question. Critics inside the fanbase have pointed out a recurring pattern. When the Bills need mid-season help, they often look backward instead of exploring new options. Familiarity becomes the priority. Lawson is another example of that approach, a player who's been here before and fits the mold of what the staff is comfortable with. But comfort doesn't always equal impact, especially when the market might hold more dynamic pass rushers with higher ceilings. Still, the circumstances are hard to ignore. The Bills need bodies. They need experience. They need someone who can stabilize a battered unit. And in moments like this, teams often turn to players who already know the heartbeat of the locker room. The Bills turning back to familiar names has practically become a theme this season. It's not just one or two returning faces, it's an entire group of veterans who've already worn this uniform, already lived in this locker room, and now find themselves back in the mix all over again. 4 of them are major contributors right now, which shows how heavily Buffalo has leaned on its past to stabilize the present. Jordan Poyer is right at the center of that trend. At 34, he's far from his prime years, yet the Bills are still relying on him to carry massive responsibilities on the back end of the defense. Tre'Davious White, also past 30 and still fighting to regain his old form, has been seeing high-volume snaps as well, not because the Bills want to push him this hard, but because injury after injury has stripped away their options. The cornerback depth has been tested in every possible way, and White keeps being asked to do more than intended. Jordan Phillips is another example. He's stepped in along the interior as a steady rotational piece, giving Buffalo short flashes of disruption. His workload has grown because the defensive tackle group has been hit harder than almost any room on the roster. And on offense, the Bills even circled back to Gabe Davis, counting on him to boost the passing attack after returning from injury. He showed some promising moments in his first game back, but faded in the next, leaving fans wondering if Buffalo's plan at wide receiver is too reliant on old trust rather than new firepower. That's the core of the frustration swirling around the fanbase. These are good players, respected, experienced, tough, but they were all part of past seasons where the Bills fell short of the summit. If those earlier versions of the roster couldn't break through, what makes bringing the same names back again the answer now? That's the question hanging over every rumor about another reunion, including this potential return for Shaq Lawson. Still, the reality is simple: the Bills are bruised, battered, and scrambling for immediate reinforcements. In that context, bringing in someone who knows the system and can contribute right away carries real value. Lawson has made meaningful plays in Buffalo before, and if the coaching staff believes the defense needs another trustworthy rotational rusher, his return wouldn't be shocking. And this isn't the end of the news cycle. The Bills are dealing with more injuries, and the AFC playoff race is tightening around them. Things are getting crowded, complicated, and urgent. With every roster decision now carrying serious postseason implications, the next stretch of updates is going to matter more than ever. The Bills didn't get out of the Houston game unscathed, and the fallout is already shaping the storyline for the weeks ahead. Injuries have been a constant theme this season, and Sunday added several more names to a list that's becoming far too familiar. Terrel Bernard was the first major blow. His day ended with an elbow injury after a collision that came from one of his own teammates while trying to finish a tackle. It was another case of friendly fire for a defense that's already been held together with tape. The encouraging part is that it's the elbow, not a forearm or wrist, but the overall verdict wasn't great. The coaching staff labeled him week to week, which in Bills language usually means multiple games. For a player who has fought through injuries all season, it's another setback at the worst possible time. The offensive line took a hit as well. Spencer Brown battled through one of the toughest defensive fronts he'll see all year, and by the fourth quarter he was heavily padded, visibly uncomfortable, and eventually removed from the game. Buffalo is still gathering information, but the possibility of him missing time, or even heading to injured reserve, is very real. With the postseason race tightening, losing a starting tackle is the last thing this offense needs. Quarterback Max Harrison, the rookie first-round pick, is also in the concussion protocol. The Bills do have the benefit of an extended week before facing Pittsburgh, but that doesn't guarantee anything. If he can't clear protocol, it puts Buffalo in a difficult situation, especially considering who the Steelers expect to get back on the field. Pittsburgh is preparing for the return of their veteran quarterback, and Mike Tomlin has already said he anticipates him being ready. That only raises the stakes for the Bills, who are already dealing with a rising tide of injuries and shrinking margin for error. The AFC playoff picture has become a logjam, and Buffalo is hanging on to the final spot by the thinnest of threads. They're currently sitting in the 7th seed, the last ticket into the tournament. One misstep, one injury too many, and they could slide from in the hunt to on the outside in a heartbeat. The next few weeks will dictate everything: their positioning, their momentum, and possibly their postseason fate. The AFC race is tightening around Buffalo from every direction. Teams like the Chargers and Jaguars have found momentum, stacking wins at the exact time the Bills are struggling to stay healthy. The Steelers are right in that mix too, and they're the next opponent on Buffalo's schedule. Every team around them is heating up, and the margin for error is disappearing. Elsewhere in the conference, contenders that normally sit comfortably at the top aren't even locked into playoff spots yet. Kansas City added another win, and Baltimore reclaimed control of the AFC North, but even those teams feel the pressure of a field that grows more competitive each week. The Bills are caught in the middle of this growing storm, and the smallest slip could send them tumbling out of the picture. As Week 13 approaches, a few matchups will have a direct impact on Buffalo's path. Chiefs, Cowboys and Ravens, Bengals are the big ones, both played on Thanksgiving. Cincinnati might get Joe Burrow back, and Dallas just knocked off Philadelphia, which means they'll be carrying momentum into their showdown with Kansas City. Any of those results could reshape the standings in a matter of hours. Then the spotlight turns to Buffalo. Oddsmakers still view the Bills as a strong team, strong enough to be favored on the road against Pittsburgh, but this is one of the toughest environments in football. The Steelers expect their veteran quarterback to return, and the atmosphere will be electric with their season on the line. For the Bills, walking into that situation with a battered roster and playoff pressure pressing down is no small challenge. This matchup has become more than just another road game. It's a measuring stick. It's a gut check. And it's a moment that could dictate how the rest of their season unfolds. Win, and Buffalo stabilizes its footing in a crowded AFC fight. Lose, and the door to the postseason narrows even further. The reality is simple: the Bills are entering a stretch where every snap matters. They've survived adversity all season, but now they have to rise above it. With the playoff picture tightening and must-win games stacking up, Buffalo's response in Week May 13 be the turning point that defines everything that follows.